KCCI. There she is. Hello.
Hello. How
And
are you?
Rhea, I'm not used to seeing you with glasses.
I can take them off. I just need to.
Now, do you wear contacts when you're on TV then?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
A new thing I just realized, like maybe in the last few months, like 5 months or so, that like, oh, maybe I should probably have contacts when I'm reading because it's a little foggy, a little bit. It's not too bad, but you know, it's better with them. How are you?
Good. Are you at the office now?
No, I'm at my house.
Your house. Okay.
Yep. I'm in my office.
Yes. Yeah, at your house.
Yeah.
And I can see the poster board with vacation on the back of you.
Oh, that's my dream board.
Ah,
So it's got a lot of different things on it. It's got like good food and like vacation spots and yeah. You got to keep it in front of you. You got to keep the vision in front of you, right?
absolutely.
So when you vacation, where do you like to go?
Everywhere. I went to, so my last favorite vacation, I would say, my mom wanted to go see the running of the bulls or running with the bulls.
Mhm.
And so we went to go see it. This was in 2019 before everything like happened.
Down.
And then there's this small beach just outside of Pamplona where they run with the bulls called Saint Sebastian. And it was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. Like small town, good food, cute little shops, like historical, and the beach was just incredible. And that was like, I've been dreaming of that place. Like I need to get back
Oh, wow.
for maybe like a couple of days. But it was just so peaceful. So that's where I would like to go.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I just told Karen we're heading to Arizona just for 6 days.
Ooh, yeah.
You know. But like Karen and I said, we can't really complain about our winter. It's not been that bad.
It hasn't, but y'all know I'm from California. And so everything that's like under 50 degrees is like, ooh, this is cold. Arizona is a great place though. It gets really hot there.
Yeah. So you went to ASU and I went to NAU.
Okay.
Yeah.
ANAU.
Yeah.
Okay. Really good programs. Yeah. So you know about the heat, 100 degrees.
Yeah.
Biking to class.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's a dry heat.
It is a dry heat, and that makes a difference because I lived in Georgia, and the
Oh, that-
humidity with the heat,
Yes.
is no heavy and thick. Hi, everybody. Oh, he's on vacation.
Yeah.
I think where he is.
He's got one of those screen things that look really, really nice wherever he is.
I know. We could probably all have one if we wanted to.
Yes. I've just never taken the time to do it.
Right.
Yeah,
I just pushed a button and it came magically.
Perfect.
No, you're just smart, Park, and you know how to do that stuff.
That's perfect.
My computer is new in 2020. That's the reason why.
Okay. Okay.
Park, how's your COVID getting?
I'm very good.
Good.
Thank you. I'm a little slow of brain, but losing sleep was the worst part of it
Oh,
because of coughing.
yeah.
Wow.
So my wife and I both shared it,
Mhm.
and she's been in healthcare in a lot of sites with a lot of fatalities since 2020. So we're blessed to be here and healthy now.
Good deal. Good deal.
Thank you.
That's good to hear.
Hello, Miss Barbara and Dick Horton and John Christie and Monica and a few others that are online but not here on the video.
Good morning.
How are you?
Hi, good morning.
Well, this is the coldest 29 degrees I can imagine, because it doesn't feel like 29. I think it's 9, but they're not asking me.
I would believe you. I would.
I think it's 9 degrees.
I said anything below 50 degrees, I'm out. It's a lot for me. It's a lot.
I understand. But remember, we only have 7 weeks and it's springtime.
We have to see what that groundhog says on Wednesday.
Oh, I forgot. I completely, for the last 3 years, I have forgotten about Groundhog's Day. It's just not in the front of my mind anymore.
That's because we don't trust the groundhog.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been so many other things going on that I'm like, pandemic and all that jazz.
Just a few
Hi,
things.
everybody coming in. Ooh. Okay.
Rhea, how much can you work actually from home?
I do a lot of work. I do a lot of stuff from home. So what do you like as far as technical or
Yeah.
like TV wise?
Mhm.
Well, there was a point where I was literally working from like my living room. Like they set up a camera in my living room and I was going live during the pandemic. So whatever they need, like it can happen.
Mhm.
It can happen. As far as anything else, like Zoom interviews and writing scripts, I can do all that from home.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my Roomba started up.
Mhm.
Can you guys hear that? No.
Dick, check the chat. Horton, check the chat.
Are the Blooms having a glass of wine with lunch?
Well,
I
it
love it.
looks like it, Georgia.
Enjoy.
I love that for them.
Oh.
Okay, well, welcome to the January 31st meeting of the Rotary Club of Ames. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's please remain standing for individuals or families that we would like to keep in our thoughts. I don't know of anyone. Does anyone in our Rotary family know of anyone that we need to keep in our thoughts, prayers, our hearts, our good vibes? Okay, let's take a moment. Thank you. Okay, I believe John Christie will be singing our welcome song. So I will let you unmute and I will mute.
Okay. Thanks, Kelsey. And welcome to all our guests and visitors. Welcome to you from Ames Rotary, Noveda, London, Oge, Paris, from far off lands or the USA. We're glad that you are here today. Come back again whenever you're near. Join us and then we'll make it clear. Around the world you will always be welcome at Rotary.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. At this time, I don't think we have any further business. I would invite Jeannie Rogert to introduce our speaker. You're muted.
That would help. Okay. I'm excited that Rheya agreed to join us today. She's a breaking news anchor for KCCI 8 News at 5, 6, and 10. She solo anchors the 9 p.m. news on 8.2 Me TV. Previously, she was the third anchor on KCCI News This Morning. She anchored traffic in KCCI 8 News at noon. She has a passion for social issues and has taken up the role of focusing on diverse and pressing topics that are reflective of society and our communities. She won a Diversity and Inclusion Award from ISU in 2019 and an Emmy nomination in 2020 for her reporting. Rheya started her career in Albany, Georgia as a multimedia journalist. Her career continued in Augusta, where she started as the morning multimedia journalist and quickly became the go-to for live breaking news reports. There, she also cultivated and anchored a segment called The Morning Top 5. Maybe she'll tell us what that was. Rheya is a graduate of the Arizona State University Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and is currently getting her master's in legal studies at ASU Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law. I welcome Rheya to Rotary Noon in Ames, Iowa.
Yay, thank you for having me. I know you wanted me to explain just a little bit about what the master's in legal studies has to do with anything. And really, I wanted to understand a lot of the historical context in civil rights as well as racial injustice and social injustice. So to better my storytelling, to create workshops, to be a better resource, to learn how to navigate and find resources and what to look for, I decided to get my master's in legal studies, and I will be done in December of this year. So it's been great. The curriculum has been great. It's everything that I wanted to learn and know, and helping me expand my mind to figure out what to look for and create moving forward. So it's been good. It's been good, but I'm very happy to be here and to have, just kind of a real conversation. I think that I have something that I found that I want to read to you guys, and then I kind of want to open it up for questions because I think that's the best. I think interaction and just having that dialogue would probably be the best way to do this. So I don't know how I became the big person and then everyone else became small. I like seeing everyone. I think that's me though. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna start off with, this is really timely, I guess. I found something that I wrote about being a Black woman in Iowa and being a journalist in Iowa. And it was kind of anecdotal. It was for a previous presentation, but it was 2 years ago. So this was January of 2020, before we had Ahmaud Arbery, before we had so many things that kind of shifted social justice and what people were fighting for. And this was kind of just my mindset before all of this had even happened, and what I was navigating around before all that happened. So I'm gonna read this first and then kind of go from there. Okay, so it starts off. When you think of a newsroom, you think unbiased culture and perspective. And that's what I expected. It's a different beast though when you're the only one with your perspective. That means more critical thinking, more explaining, more teaching. Yes, teaching. I'm not here to complain. Let me reiterate, I do love my job, but it comes with responsibility and obligations that can both exhaust me and leave me so fulfilled. So let's break this down. First, the importance of being a woman in today's climate. This time is so crucial. Your voice has weight. And I think as a Black woman, I wouldn't fully understand the magnitude and necessity of my voice if it weren't for the experiences that I've had, especially here in Iowa. There have been many a time in the newsroom where I had to specifically describe and fight for my perspective because I am not white or a man. Case in point, there's a particular story where a Black man was killed inside his home from a white police officer. And again, this was before Ahmaud Arbery and all that. So she claims that she believes she entered the wrong apartment. Now, this story and case went on for weeks. When it went to trial, the brother of a man who was shot and killed in his apartment walked up to the officer, accused of shooting him, and hugged her in forgiveness. Now, this was a moment. This was a moment for the tension and discerning history that exists between police officers and Black people. The social aspect of this was just as important as the story itself. A Black man, historically portrayed as aggressive and a threat, out of a moment of strength, showed forgiveness in a time where he could have shown vengeance or extreme hurt. And this moment was again broadcasted throughout the nation, including here in Iowa. I remember my co-anchor reading it, and the language of the way we worded this story bothered me. So I immediately said something. He got it, but he didn't. I can tell he thought I was nitpicking, and I was. Because as writers, we know that one word can change everything. So I said, mistakenly. Why are we saying that? Why is her sentencing even a topic of discussion? She mistakenly shot him. What an implication. What is she on trial for? The proof of intention. My producer and co-anchor looked at me wide-eyed. I continued. This is not the story. The story today is the social aspect of this. The story today is that this man forgave this woman, this officer, for shooting his brother without even knowing the intention. My co-anchor argued, I gave a rebuttal, and then we heard the eye-opener of CBS This Morning, followed by the headline to the story, let's see what they focus on. I bet you not once they don't mention her sentence. So we watched the story, and we waited for them to mention her mistakenly entering the home or her sentence, and they never did. So instead, we heard from the victim's family. We heard about the significance of the gesture on a national platform. Okay, said my co-anchor. Now they were ready to listen. Now they were ready to see what I was saying. And don't get me wrong, I love most of my co-anchors, but having to explain this in the first place took strength, and having to prove that my perspective was valid took a parallel point of view from a national platform to back me up. They might not have noticed what it took and what it takes, but I did. And these are the moments. And I realized more and more, it's less about not wanting to learn my perspective or anyone else's, and more about ignorance. Then what follows that thought is, when did I sign up for this? And the answer is the day that I was born, unintentionally. But now I can't see myself doing anything else. So aside from that, there was another story in here that I'll go over and then I'll be done. We'll go from here. But I remember the day that I was called out of my name here in Iowa. And to be honest, I was waiting for it. The Iowa Nice, although great in theory, only correlates kind of with this construction of the veil of ignorance. And so I replied to a man who left a comment about me in all caps, saying how horrible I am. And I replied civilly because in my mind, when you reply, you're letting people know that you are tangible, that I am a human. Well, clearly I was not worthy of that thought because he replied back and he called me a coon. So this is an insulting, for those who don't know, and contemptuous term for a Black person. It means it's dated stereotype of a Black fool for an audience, particularly including white people. So bottom line, it's offensive. And I didn't go into woe is me. I couldn't afford to. Instead, I just showed it. I showed it to make the point that this language does exist. It is real. And although we won't go into how it was handled internally, there was a significant moment in all of this for me. One of my managers said something along the line of, I'm just trying to approach this issue the best way I can, to which I replied, for you, it's an issue, but for me, it's every day of my life. And for him, seemingly, that was a turning point. Before then, he admits that he didn't see it that way. It was just an issue, a problem he thought he can easily solve. Here's a problem, and surely there was a solution, but there is also emotion. There is also a daily struggle and obligation to be who I am. There's also the representation for my community and for myself. There's also reserving myself from telling him exactly what I wanted to say. And there's also the culture in general that we are constantly dismissing, whether consciously or subconsciously, what we feel is worthy of dismissal without logical confrontation. There's so many layers. And I ended it with, as you go into or consume your daily media, keep this perspective and many others in mind. So again, this was a presentation that, or part of a presentation that I did 2 years before, or 6 months before all of the things happened within social justice that kind of exploded, and the pandemic. And it was something that I reflected on today and for the past few days, because I think there's so much evolution, especially as a journalist, that I've seen myself go through from that moment to now in the past 2 years of from that moment of trying to the obligation that you feel to explain yourself, to having to be an interpreter almost during 2020 through 2021 of, why are these, social justice things happening? What's the historical context of this? Why is everybody so angry? And it was me in the newsroom sometimes, literally just me. So I'm having to interpret, or I'm having to be a liaison, or I'm having to be someone that's in the middle of explanation. And although I was grateful for those moments, and although I was happy that I was there, it was hard. It's hard to be the only person who can fully explain or try to emote or try to represent an entire community. But I think if I wasn't there, it would have been a completely different story. So I'm grateful that I was. And I'm grateful for my coworkers who were there as well, who are also Black. But I also know in that time too, there were so many things going on that, like, asking these 3 people in the newsroom was getting exhausting, and not everyone was open to questions, and not everyone was open to explaining, and not everyone was open to having this conversation, because it's like, you should know. But at the same time, I think I've realized over time, and even within that moment, that, like, not everyone does. Not everyone understands or knows or has grown with or learned about or fully understands the significance of historical context and how relevant it is to how we treat people today, and how relevant and real it is, and how it exists in so many different ways and systems, and just how we treat people in general. So I say that all to say, it's been fulfilling. It's been purposeful. It's been amazing. It's also been really freaking hard. But I am glad. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad to be a representation. I'm glad to tell the stories that are hard to tell. I think that sometimes people may not get it all the time. And I think sometimes I get really great emails that say, I have never thought about that way ever before in my life. And those are the ones that I like, that's the moment that I live for, is to say, like, okay, like, I showed you something today, and I can learn from you too, because I didn't know that you didn't think of it that way, or why you didn't think of it that way. So it's been a journey, guys. It's been a journey. But I kind of want to open it up to questions. If you guys have any, otherwise I'll just keep rambling. But I just wanted to give a little bit of my perspective and what it's been like. And I think that sharing that blurb was so appropriate and kind of just popped up at the right time. Because to see that literally from almost exactly 2 years ago is kind of uncanny, a little weird. And it shows you that not much has changed, but a lot has as well. Oh, thank you for whoever said that on the chat. Randy, does anybody have questions? I'm like very open.
I have a question. This is
Sure.
Kate Reynolds.
Hi.
And I have a practice when I'm sending emails for work and generally to always stop and not just proofread, but read for language, so that I am making sure that the way that I present myself is not questioning or second guessing myself, but actually stating my opinion and stating what I think needs to happen, because I feel like I've been trained to apologize for when I have an opinion. Do you have any advice for being able to apply that when you're talking? I struggle with that at times when I'm just speaking in meetings or other situations.
Okay, so your question is how to like navigate around second guessing yourself?
Or just presenting myself and using language and not stumbling when I am doing that.
Oh, okay, that's a good one. I think that you just have to like, this sounds very cliche and like corny, but you just have to believe in what you're saying. I think if you like if I go out on a live shot or something's happening around me and I have 3 bullet points of, I might not know exactly what to say, but if I have 3 bullet points of like, I know what I'm going to say and I can take the experience of what's happening around me, and I'm sure that I can convey this to you, then it comes out right. I think mostly half the battle is confidence and just believing that you can do it. You can totally, there is nothing that you can't convey or say. And I would also take out the expectation of yourself that you're like not gonna mess up. I mean, I mess up. You just get, it's just how beautifully you fall, right? It's like if you fall, just keep going. Don't give the so much energy to the moment of like, oh my God, I failed, because usually people are paying attention to the bigger picture of like what you're saying, what you're doing, the overall message you're conveying. And if it's passionate and if it has confidence in it, and if you believe it, everybody else will too.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that was helpful. What were your first impressions of Iowa when you first came to Iowa? Has anything changed? Ooh, that's a good question. My first impression was, I think that Iowa is, you know, quaint. I got the Iowa nice thing, but that there was a lot of potential, but there's work to do, right? I mean, there's work to do. I think that as Iowa grows, it's getting more and more out of its comfort zone a little bit. I think that it's a bigger city with a small town mentality, which is nice, but it can also build up or bring barriers that you don't need. Like, just expand your mind and leave yourself open to what can come and change and evolving. And I think that's kind of kept going while I'm here. Like that perspective for me I've seen that continuously, but I think that Iowa, it tries in some realm. So that's my first impression. And I think that I'm trying to be not politically correct, but sensitive to all perspectives here. I just think that it could be more open and considerate of various perspectives. How do you see the George Floyd case changing both Black and white Iowans? How did I see it personally, Park? I think, okay, so we had George Floyd, we had Ahmaud Arbery, we had the Amy Walker case. And those who aren't familiar with the Amy Walker case, it was like a man was in the park, he was watching birds, minding his business, or Amy Cooper. I don't know why I called her Amy Walker. Amy Cooper. He was watching birds. This woman, he asked this woman to put her dog on a leash, and she became irate. And she was like, basically, how dare you? I'm gonna call the police and tell them that a Black man is threatening me. And he was literally just asking her to put her dog on a leash because there were birds in this particular park, and he valued them very much. Anyway, so we had all these three things going on where you saw visually what was happening. You saw George Floyd get killed in the middle of the day by someone kneeling on his neck. And you saw that it was an extra force. You saw Ahmaud Arbery getting killed in the middle of the day for jogging after two men, were driving in their car and took it upon themselves to be the law and therefore shot and killed him. And then you see Amy Cooper, who again is irate that this man, how dare he tell her to abide by the signage that was a few feet away from her and keep her dog on a leash. And these three perspectives continue back to back, just kind of showed the position of societally where we were and how back to back, it was three examples of how Black people were treated, specifically Black men. And it just felt overwhelming in the sense that we were all at home, we were all in a pandemic, we were all seeing this video, and you could not ignore it. And I think for the better, honestly, it kind of opened a lot of people's eyes. I know that there was some backlash. I know that there was, well, he must have done something wrong and da-da-da-da. And there's so much historical context to that there's no way I can cover that in this Zoom. But I think that overall, I think, and I hope that it changed perspectives for the better and showing that this really, rather than me saying it, or rather than you hearing like, this group of people is suppressed, or this group of people socially, economically is not treated as fairly or dismissed. I think that was very clear when three videos popped up at the same time, showing it in a very short amount of time. It was no longer like, well, you can't dismiss it, it's on film. And so I think for both Black and white Iowans, for Black Iowans, I feel like it was a sense of hurt and relief to show that like, this is what we were talking about. Maybe we don't have to explain ourselves anymore. But it was also anger that it is still happening, and it was 2020. Have you read the book White Fragility by Robin DeAnge? Your opinion of her text? Did you attend Robin's lecture at ISU last year? And C.Y. Stevens. I have not read White Fragility. I will counter that and said, have you read Peggy Whitson's White Privilege essay? Who is Tom Walsh? Tom.
Yes, I'm Tom Walsh, and no, I've not read the text you're mentioning there. So,
tell me about White Fragility. What's the premise? I've heard of this book.
Well, I think basically what Robin, the thesis of Robin's text is, she basically is saying that everyone is prejudiced, particularly the white population, and we all have these subtle prejudices that we can't seem to shed. And she gives an example of someone having saying, "Oh, I'm not racist. I have these Asian friends, and I don't even know they're Asian." So
yes. So it sounds very similar to Peggy Whitson's essay about white privilege, which is the same thing in saying that she basically uses herself as an example and says that she has recognized now how much she has dismissed the perspectives of others and how much she has lived in her comfortability and therefore could not acknowledge it for so long because she had been living that way and didn't truly understand that her comforts resulted in such a privilege or an easier going life until she was able to have conversations with others. And she has like 50 pillars that she talks about and points. And she says, you know, if you don't have to worry about speaking or having a conversation or that your perspective won't be heard, like raise your hand kind of situation. So it sounds very similar. Now you asked me what was my opinion of her text. My opinion is that historically, as a nation, we have built in laws, we have built in perspectives, we have built in interactions that have cultivated a culture in which whiteness is standard and elevated. And over time, a lot of these ideals have still been perpetuated. If I told you how a jury was constructed back in post-slavery days in the 1860s, surely you would understand then how and the historical context of what was created then and how it translates to now. Because again, it operated on the premise of whiteness is standard, whiteness is achievable, whiteness is excellence. And so, yes, there are a lot of subconscious and unconscious behaviors that people hold to this day. And I say that because I don't think a lot of people truly know or understand how they operate or why I'm doing this or why I'm asking this question or why I'm talking to somebody like this or why I'm dismissing this person. Or even if they get to that point of understanding, like, I am dismissing this person, I am not really taking in what they're saying because I don't validate what they're saying or I don't accredit them because I've been taught not to accredit them. But it goes again back to this historical landscape and everything that we have built as a nation. Our founding fathers and people who have built our justice systems have built as a nation because in that realm, in that time, that ideology presented itself to be right. And so now we are trying to evolve that, and we are seeing that people are fighting against it because it is wrong, and unlearning this behavior. First, learning that you did learn, that you subconsciously or unconsciously are doing these things, and then unlearning it and trying to understand it. So my opinion is that I would agree to that in a lot of aspects. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Randy said White Fragility is an excellent book. I need to get it. I will get it. Does anybody have any other questions? Have you been a victim of racial bias, and how have you overcome the bias in your current role? Oh yeah. Yes. Yes. Racial bias. Do you mean like, Mark, where are you? Hi, Mark. Do you mean, explain to me what you mean so I can answer it very specifically. Can you hear me? Oh, you're on mute.
Yep, there. Well, I was just wondering if you had an example. You know, I've read studies here recently where, say, like people, a black couple trying to sell their house would get one appraisal, and then they had their white friends show their house and removed all of their personal effects out of it and got a much higher appraisal on it, for example.
Sure. Yes, I've been followed around in stores. I have been dismissed in and outside of the workplace. I've been told if I got a position or asked if I got a position because of my race. So yes, I would say that I have been a victim of it. How do you overcome? Oh, and not to mention the lovely viewer emails that I get sometimes. But how do you overcome the bias in your current role? Grace, a lot of grace, a lot of grace, and a lot of having conversations with people who are willing to have a conversation. I think sometimes it's above that and it's easier to get upset, especially depending on what people are trying to tell you or say to you. But for the most part, I try to make it an educational moment.
Mhm.
I try my hardest, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Voting rights saga is central to what you are saying. Yes. John, how do you view President Biden's approach to nominating a Supreme Court justice? I think it's time, but what do you mean specifically? Carol and Dean. Where are you, Carol and Dean? Oh, there you are. I assume you're the Dean to the Carol. You're on mute. Your mute button. Can you click it? Oh, he's not clicking it. There you go.
I'm the Dean part of Carol and Dean.
Hey, Dean.
No, I'm just curious whether you feel that his opening statement of nominating a Black woman to the court, is that putting it in a position where it potentially provides the argument, well, this individual is not really qualified, but she's Black, so she's there.
I think that's such an interesting concept because I think there are, I think the previous Supreme Court justice nomination, there were similar perspectives, right? Because we were looking at experience and whether or not that woman was qualified or not. I think that it could potentially put that in a position, but I also think that it's time. And I also think that if you look at what these women have done, or their resume, based on what the qualifications previously have been to be a Supreme Court justice nomination, they meet or exceed the standards. And usually, I'm not gonna say usually, actually, I'm gonna say when you do put a person of color in that position or any position of any position that will warrant pressure and warrant questions like this, often they are overqualified to compensate for that question. So I will say, I'm sure it does open that argument to say, well, he's just picking somebody because they're a Black woman. Yeah, it's also probably time that we have more diversity. I think this is the first, it's 2022 and it's the first Black woman that's being nominated as a Supreme Court justice nominee. So I hope people also think about that question as well. I hope I answered your question. I tried to.
Yeah, certainly there are qualified candidates.
Yeah.
Build that thing. I'm wondering if the other members of the Supreme Court are going to look at this individual saying, you know, is she really qualified?
Yeah.
Versus if he had picked a Black woman out of an array of candidates that are qualified and she's equally qualified. I don't know if I'm making my point there, but.
No, you are making your point, but I think two realities can exist, right? Like if I'm brought into a position because you need a diverse perspective in that position, like at work, But I also have 2 degrees and 8 years of experience. Doesn't that then become an answer to 2 realities? That A, I'm fulfilling something that you need, but B, that I'm also qualified for the position?
Yeah. I'm concerned she's going to go into the court and not be recognized for the full talents.
Yeah.
Whereas if she'd been selected from a broad range of candidates. So enough said.
Rheya, can I add a perspective? This is Barbara. Can I add a perspective?
Yes, please, Barbara.
I would argue that if she had been, if he had said, I'm going to nominate, I'm going to put several people up, and there had been a person of color, female in the group, she would have never gotten past her name being on the list. But if he defines it as X, then you only have one choice. And that in itself gives, no matter what we say, if they select his choice, that's the only choice they have. Because when you give multiple opportunities, you give somebody the ability, I think, to say that person is not as qualified as other people in the pool.
Right.
So having multiple people competing against each other gives us an out. It gives us an out. That's my perspective.
I appreciate it. Dean, do you have anything to add to that perspective?
No, that's an interesting comment, and I appreciate Barb.
Why don't we ask the same question if the president was nominating a white man? Why don't we ask the same question if the president was nominating a white man?
That was an editorial from me, so we don't ask the same question if it was a white man.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that full circle, I mean, it comes down to this conversation of, right, when you are a person of color, you have to explain and overcompensate and articulate a lot because you are questioned a lot more. Your stature is questioned, your qualifications are questioned. You're questioned. Because as I said a few minutes ago, what has been the standard and what has been perceived and articulated and portrayed in our justice system and our laws and how we operate as a society, our standard of trust is whiteness. Anybody else have any questions? This has been great, guys. You guys have some good questions.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
It's totally off topic, but I just want to ask this question because we're in the thick of winter.
Yeah.
Why do newscasters always go outside in the cold or the wind or the rain and stand out there and shiver and are frozen and say, it's really bad out here, don't
go
travel
out here.
Why don't they lead by example, saying we're here in the studio where it's nice and warm?
We do it for you. Yeah, I have no real answer. Usually, like if it's below a certain point, like if it's below freezing, right, we're not gonna send anybody out there. That's crazy. Unless it is something like dire and they're going from like the car to like outside for 1 minute and then back in the car. But as far as like a storm or something, if we can go out there, I mean, we're gonna go out there. Half of us want to go out there. So for kind of the thrill of it, but also to keep you informed. It's for you. Jean? It's for you. That was a funny question. Well, everyone, I'm open to any more last minute questions, but otherwise this has been
Rheya,
a great dialogue. Hey.
question.
Yeah.
In terms of markets,
yes.
How do you compare the Iowa market to other places that, like you were in Georgia and wherever? How do you compare it in terms of presenting the news?
Oh, that's good. Okay. There's not a lot of crime that happens here, which is good. But I would say that would probably be the major difference. I came from Augusta, Georgia, which is technically not, I'm from Los Angeles, but my last market was in Augusta, Georgia. And I would say that there's a lot more crime, and therefore there was a lot more to inform people about or talk about. But I think here you have the advantage of storytelling and digging into deeper aspects of news, like legislation and social justice and investigative reports, which is a really good opportunity, I would say. So I think that's where it differs, which is kind of good. But I do think that diversity wise, you know, we're getting a lot better at telling different perspectives and different stories. I think that we could do more. So I'm working on it.
Have you ever wanted to cover a particular story and was told that you could not?
If I have, it's been a minute. I think only because I have built up a lot of accountability and credibility, like at my station, to the point where I'm like, I need to go do this story. And I'll be like, all right, go do it, because we know it'll turn into something. I'm sure there were moments where there have been moments where something that I think is bigger has been reduced. Like if I think it's a story, it might be reduced to like a 30-second thing, and I'm like, oh, we could have went out and talked to them. But I think for the most part, if I'm pitching it or I'm really passionate about it, they'll let me go do it. And I think that that's super valuable. And it's something that I had to work like really hard for, but it's been worth it for sure. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Mark, I just want to be, and this is gonna be a very vague answer, but I just want to be purposeful in whatever I'm doing. I think that what I'm doing right now is part of my purpose. I think I'm supposed to educate. I think I'm supposed to storytell. I think I'm supposed to build up a community that needs to be heard. And I just plan to hopefully do that in a bigger and better way. I hope it just keeps expanding. That's my 10-year goal. Mark. John, did I answer your question? Is that your first name? J. John. I don't know what your first name is.
Jeff Johnson. Yes,
Jeff.
you did.
I did. Okay. Thank you. And then
You bet.
Mark. I hope I answered your question too. All right.
The other question would be, how do you show up 3 times a day with a smile on your face when people are crazy?
Coffee? No. I don't know, like God, prayer, coffee, all the things. I think that like I said, I think this is part of my purpose. And so ultimately, like some of the conversations and the things might not be the greatest, but I think overall it's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I think, I don't know, I think the more that I walk in my purpose, the happier that I am, regardless of like what comes with it. So that helps me, I would say. Anybody else? No.
Well, thank you so much. That was incredible. We, I think I had emailed you even last year to try and get you on the schedule, and we finally made it happen with Kent.
We
and
did it.
Jeannie got it done. So thank you so much. We so appreciate your time, your perspective, your talent. So thank you so much. We had a great time this afternoon. Appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me. You had wonderful questions and insight and perspective, and this was awesome. Happy to meet all of you, and I hope that I brought something to you today. And if you do have any questions, that you think about after and you want to reach out, I think both of you guys have my email. My email is out there. So just email me and we can talk.
Thanks, Ray.
Well, thanks everybody.
Thank you. And Karen, I don't think we have any announcements. I don't think, but I'll wait for you to get the screen up. Nope, let's stand for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.
Dick Horton, are you still on? Dick Horton. This is Barbara. Did I lose?
Dick, you need to
You're on
unmute.
mute,
Yeah.
Dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dick,
Hear me now, Barb?
yes, I can. I wanted to let you know that one of your former people at Delta Sigma Theta passed,
Who?
Cheryl Hickman.
Who?
Cheryl Hickman. You would have worked with her.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Wonderful times. I go back
Yes.
and think of all those years we worked together. That was
She was
No.
just elected national president in November. So she basically served 2 months.
yeah. Right. Good
But
time.
wanted to let you know.
Okay.
Thanks,
Take
Karen.
care. Yep.